Today, we're taking a deep dive into some truly transformative concepts about human behavior and collective success. Honestly, have you ever found yourself in one of those work environments? You know the ones. Everyone's aggressively defending their own turf, shifting the blame, and just hyper-focused on their own personal goals. I want you to literally think about the physical feeling of that kind of workplace friction for a second. Think about that heavy pit in your stomach right before a tense cross-departmental meeting. Or just the sheer, soul-crushing exhaustion of navigating daily office politics. Heck, maybe you felt a similar disconnect with the people you care about most at home. When things go sideways, it is so incredibly easy, almost instinctual really, to just blame the other person. But today, we're exploring some groundbreaking work from the Arbinger Institute in their book, The Outward Mindset. We're going to uncover how the root cause of all these friction-filled dynamics is actually hidden right inside our own minds. And as you'll see, shifting that internal perspective can completely revolutionize your career, your leadership, and your personal relationships. So here is the 5-part paradigm shift we're going to explore today. First, the root of friction. Second, the inward mindset trap. Third, the outward transformation. Fourth, the 3-step SAM model. And finally, leading with an outward mindset. Let's jump right in. Section 1. The root of friction. Now, if we actually want to fix organizational culture or relationship friction, we've got to look way deeper than just surface-level behavior. Think about it. Why do teams fail, even when they have a brilliant strategy? Usually, when a company tries to fix a toxic culture, leadership obsesses over behavior modification, right? Managers just exhaust themselves rolling out new rules, setting up new metrics, launching these fresh, shiny strategies, only to watch the exact same toxic behaviors creep right back in a few months later. So why does this keep happening? Well, it's because behavior is just the visible outcome of something much deeper, and that is our mindset. Mindset is like this invisible internal filter that dictates how we perceive our environment, how we view the people around us, and ultimately, how we choose to respond to them. Trying to change behavior without actually changing that underlying mindset, it's literally like painting over a cracked foundation. Sure, it might look great for a day or two, but the whole structure is still fundamentally compromised. To really picture this, imagine 2 leaders giving the exact same critical feedback to a struggling employee. Literally, they use the exact same words, sitting in the exact same office. The first leader, let's call them the inward leader, views the struggling employee as basically a broken cog. They're just a problem that needs to be fixed quickly so the leader can hit their own quarterly targets and get that promotion. Because of this internal monologue, the feedback comes off mechanical, cold, and entirely self-serving. And you know what? The employee instinctively senses it. Their guard instantly goes up and they get completely defensive. Now imagine the outward leader. This leader uses the exact same script, but they view the employee as a full, complex human being facing real obstacles. Their internal monologue is genuinely focused on wanting to help this person grow and succeed. So the feedback lands with genuine empathy and patience. The physical actions and the words were identical on the surface, but because the underlying mindsets were different, the feeling in the room and the actual result was a total night and day difference. Which brings us to Section 2, the inward mindset trap. So what exactly is going on when we act like that first leader? Well, we fall into what the Arbinger Institute calls the inward mindset trap. At its core, an inward mindset is a state of profound self-absorption. It happens when our focus narrows down strictly to our own goals, our own comfort, our own prestige, and our own protection. Now, here's an absolutely crucial insight from the source material. This almost always happens unconsciously. Very few people actually wake up in the morning and choose to be malicious or selfish. But under the intense pressure of deadlines, stress, or just fear, we kind of slip into this self-absorbed survival mode. And the real kicker is, when we operate from this survival mindset, we unconsciously stop seeing others as full, dynamic human beings with their own valid needs and challenges. We just reduce them to mere objects. And when we reduce people to objects, we essentially toss every single person we interact with into one of 3 distinct buckets. First up, we see them as vehicles, meaning we only value them as long as they can help us get what we want. Think of a barista that you only see as a coffee dispenser, or a coworker you only care about for their spreadsheet skills. Once they've served your purpose, they're invisible. Second, we see people as obstacles. We view them as threats, nuisances, or just roadblocks standing in our way. Think about that incredibly slow driver in front of you. In that moment, you view them as a malicious roadblock purposefully ruining your morning commute, right? It just breeds instant anger. Or third, we see them as irrelevancies. We treat them as if they literally do not exist because their lives don't immediately impact ours, like walking past a janitor without even a second glance. The absolute tragedy here is that treating people like objects isolates us, and it causes everyone around us to naturally and instinctively resist us.
This whole objectification thing leads to one of the most brilliant and, honestly, tragic psychological concepts in the book, the collusion loop. This is the cycle of self-justification, and it drives so much of our daily conflict. Let's walk through exactly how this goes down in real life. Imagine it's 5 p.m. You see a coworker frantically struggling with a presentation that's due tomorrow. Your initial, fundamentally human impulse is to stay and help. But step one, you betray that impulse. You pack up your bag, tell yourself, hey, not my job, and head for the elevator. Now, to avoid feeling like a bad person for ditching them, your brain initiates step two. It has to justify your inaction by blaming them. You start inventing flaws, telling yourself, you know what, they're always so disorganized. They should have started way earlier. I can't help anyway. I'm busy doing real work. You inflate your own virtues while totally magnifying their flaws. Then we hit step three. The next morning, you treat them coldly because you've convinced yourself they're lazy. They sense your hostility, get flustered, and make a mistake during the presentation. And boom, you immediately use that mistake as hard evidence to justify your original judgment. You think, see, I knew they were incompetent. Two inwardly focused people will continuously provoke the exact same behavior they're complaining about, basically locking themselves into a toxic, inescapable cycle of inefficiency and blame.
All right, let's move to section 3, the outward transformation. Breaking free from that exhausting loop requires a complete, fundamental shift in perspective. To really anchor this concept, let's look at a high-stakes case study directly from the source material involving a high-level police SWAT team. Traditionally, these tactical teams operate under a super high-stress, command-and-control structure where every single member is hyper-focused on their individual role and, naturally, their own personal safety. And honestly, it makes total sense why they would default to an inward mindset, right? It's literally a life-or-death situation. Your survival instinct kicks in, and you just focus on your assigned corner of the room. But in this particular department, this hyper-individual inward focus actually created massive blind spots. It was leading to high tension, strained communication, and some really critical, dangerous errors during these high-stakes operations. So to fix this, the SWAT team underwent a massive transformation by actively shifting to an outward mindset. Instead of just clearing their designated corner and blindly waiting for the next order, team members were trained to actively anticipate and cover their teammates' needs. They constantly assessed the position of their fellow operators. They literally started clearing paths and continuously adjusting their own movements solely to make the teammates around them safer and more effective. And the results? Absolutely astounding. We're talking faster operations, significantly fewer errors, and dramatic increases in safety, cohesion, and trust. This completely shatters the myth that having an outward mindset is just about being nice or touchy-feely. No way. This is a hard-nosed, elite tactical strategy for achieving exceptional collective performance. And this applies perfectly to everyday businesses too. Consider a classic organizational silo to see how an inward mindset can completely tank a company. Imagine a supply chain department given a very inward metric: cut shipping costs this quarter. So the VP of supply chain aggressively negotiates with a new low-cost logistics provider, they hit their metric, and the department celebrates a massive internal victory. Everyone gets their bonuses, high fives all around. But what is the outward impact? Well, that new cheap provider takes twice as long to deliver products. Suddenly, the sales team's phones are ringing off the hook with furious customers. Huge deals get canceled. Trust is entirely broken, and ultimately the company's overall revenue takes a nosedive. From an inward perspective, the supply chain team did a fantastic job. They nailed their narrow goal. But from an outward perspective, wearing those inward blinders caused them to accidentally bleed the whole organization dry. Functional silos in a company aren't created by structural org charts. They are created by inward mindsets. Moving right along to section 4, the 3-step SAM model. So, how do we actually fix this on a day-to-day basis? Let's dive into the actionable framework that makes this shift a daily discipline. It's called the SAM model. Step 1 is C. You must actively seek to understand the work, the pressures, and the realities of the people around you. It's about stopping those quick assumptions, like assuming a slow coworker is just lazy, and starting to ask, hey, what roadblocks are making your job difficult right now? Step 2 is adjust. Once you truly see their reality, you have to adapt your effort to actually help them. This could mean something as simple as modifying how you format a weekly date report so another department doesn't have to manually re-enter all your numbers, or it might just mean being a bit more responsive to their emails. Step 3 is measure. And listen, this is the absolute most critical part. Instead of just asking, did I complete my assigned tasks, you actively measure your impact by asking, did my adjustment actually help the people downstream succeed? It requires checking back in. By committing to these 3 steps, see, adjust, measure, you create this continuous, compounding loop of empathy, trust, and exceptional execution. Finally, section 5, leading with outward mindset. Now, transitioning all of this into management can definitely feel intimidating. When a lot of leaders first hear the term outward mindset, they instantly worry it means they have to become a pushover, or lower their standards, or just turn a blind eye to poor results. But let me be super clear. Being outward absolutely does not mean being soft. Think about how accountability usually works. When you hold someone accountable from an inward mindset, you're essentially blaming them for threatening your own success or making you look bad. To the employee, it feels like punishment, control, and hostile judgment. But outward accountability? It's entirely different. It is rooted in deep respect, absolute clarity, and uncompromisingly high standards. You still address performance issues directly and firmly, but you do it because you genuinely care about that person's potential and the team's shared mission. You're partnering with them to solve a problem, not attacking them for being one. This mindset shift completely changes a performance review from a hostile interrogation into a highly collaborative coaching session. It empowers you to hold people accountable with total psychological safety and zero malice.
To wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a very direct question to think about. Who is one person you will choose to see differently tomorrow? You see, the most empowering part of the Arbinger Institute's work is realizing that changing your mindset doesn't require waiting for your boss, your spouse, or your difficult colleagues to change first. This is an entirely inside-out process. You don't need anyone's permission to start. So pick just one person. Maybe it's a coworker you frequently clash with, or a family member who really frustrates you. Ask yourself what pressures and burdens they might be carrying that you just haven't bothered to see yet. Then, take one small, concrete step to adjust your behavior and help them succeed, without expecting a single thing in return. If you step out of that exhausting box of self-absorption and actively choose to see people as people, you will unlock a world of limitless potential for yourself and your entire organization. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I challenge you to make that shift today.